Imagine this. You wake up, holy shit, and you just win 5 games in a row. Holy fuck, you just won 10 games in a row. And the elo just keeps going up. I'ma show you how to copy these exact results like the dumbass beginner I am describing. In this video, I'll walk you through the necessary stages in order to actually do it. We're going to talk about something that is called openings. We're going to talk about tunnel vision, and we're going to talk a little bit in the end about tactics, which is very important as a beginner. Let's actually start with the second topic, which is avoiding tunnel vision, which is probably where most of you are stuck. Anyways, pawn to h6, we're going to talk about this more in the opening principles, but this is a bad move. Why is this? Because in the beginning you have what is called the beginning tasks, the things you want to achieve in the opening, and one of them is very simply you want to make sure that you control as much as possible the center. It's meaning that when the computer puts the green arrow into f6, it basically tells you I think you should have done this move instead. Why is this the case? Because again it aims more at the center. We want to do this as much as possible in the opening, in the beginning stages of the game. This is called taking over the center. You want to do this, and then you want to castle as quickly as possible. A move like h6 does not do that, it slows you down. That's in very general terms about opening principles. We'll talk more about this later. But now, for tunnel vision. After h6, white does the move d4, taking over the center, and black replies with a very bad reply. He does the move knight takes on d4. Why is this a problem? First of all, what happens in an example like this is that you then could reply with your own capture, knight takes on e5, and immediately threaten to capture another pawn. Basically, black had over-focused on one side of the board, a capture that he can make, and he neglected completely something else that could happen in the future further on because of this. This is very common for beginners, and let's just see how this happens. Right now, the only possible reply by black is to move the knight here. If he moves the knight to e6, he may defend the pawn initially, but not forever. White could take with the bishop in here, and then the queen could come out like this in the future. It is a big problem for black, and you could feel free to catch this using a board analysis, because this is a mini guide, so I'll walk you through as much as I can in the shortest amount of time possible. So this is a common mistake. And then moving on from this, black does another problem in addition to this, because you see the knight is obviously under threat, the pawn is under threat, but doing a move like queen to e7 immediately neglects the safety of this knight. It's now going to get captured like completely 100%. Two different mistakes that made black end up lose a lot of material because of this. So I'll show you the quickest way to do this. First of all, you capture here the pawn, okay? The bishop is obviously defended by the knight, and it's a check, so he'll have to move back, and then following this, we're going to take the knight. Feel free to download this example and try to analyze it on the board, but overall it means that black have now made 2 mistakes that make him lose material. This is very, very common amongst beginners, where you're going to make a move, completely neglect another side of the board, and because of this lose material or a pawn. Pawns especially. For beginners, this is a very, very big blind spot that they have for pawns. Intermediate and advanced players are just going to spot it immediately and utilize it against beginners. And just to prove my point, open up the last 3 to 4 games that you've played and see if a mistake like this with a 2 question marks happens in it, and following a few moves later on you just end up losing material. It's very common for beginners to have this type of mistake. We're gonna make a fix for it literally now. I'm gonna show you basically how to fix it so that it will never happen again. So let's use the second example that I have right here in order to solve tunnel visions once and for all. Basically, by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to never repeat them. d3, d5, e takes d5, knight takes back, castling, bishop f5. So far, the only problem that there is in this example is this move, but okay. Overall, objectively, just so you know, for general information, it's not a bad move, it's an important move. But why is the computer saying that bishop here is an okay move and not a great move? Because the computer, in his opinion, He wants you to move the knight back in order to threaten this bishop. This bishop is very strong, and as black he wants it away most of the time in the Italian when the bishop is there for general information. Rook e1, strengthening the rook, but also obviously making a threat in here. Now, as black, this is a threat that you need to deal with. The issue is black made the move bishop to d6 in order to defend this. And obviously, you see the blunder, it is the knight take. But this is very common. So how do we solve mistakes like this so that they won't happen to you? We ask, before every move, every single one of them, a few questions. Checks, captures, and threats. Can I make a check? Can I make a threat? Can I make a capture? These are the three questions, and it is very simple to ask. So we ask them first of all for our end, then once we decide on the move, we ask them for our opponent. So for example, if we were black, we would ask checks. Can white give me a check that I do not want right now? Not really. I mean, he could try to capture with the rook, but that's obviously a bad capture. So that is checks for us, for our end as black. Captures. Can white capture something right now that will put me in trouble? He can capture this pawn, right? So this could be a problem if he could capture it with this knight, because knight takes, and the rook takes. This is a problem for us. We know this. So we're putting our eye on this example, on this problem. Just threats. Can we make a threat maybe that will stop this that I see right now? For example, instead of, is there a threat that we can make? If we're going to try to, for example, stop this threat by bishop here, he could just block us straight away. So we don't want this. Okay, but we now know the problem. We have a threat that we have to react to and also make our position better. Okay, how are we going to do this? So we had the thought, okay, maybe we want to do bishop here. But then we ask again, checks, captures, and threats. Is there a capture that they can make? If we move here, they could go here and capture my own knight, and I just end up losing material. So this is bad, we discard this. Now we're not gonna make the blunder. We're gonna instead make something else. Okay, is there another way to solve pawn to... Is there another way to solve the capture on e5? Yes, there is, and that is by maybe moving for the pawn in here. Okay, now we're basically safe. By now I think you see the pattern that we're going to use to solve this bad thinking process. Let's now talk about how to apply this into your game so that you will never ever have to fix it again. Go now to chess.com and go on to custom puzzles and specify in here. You'll have a section of hanging pieces puzzles. Use that in order to specify for what is called hanging pieces puzzles. And then you practice this thinking rhythm again. Checks, captures, and threats. Specify, if you're a beginner, for 1200 to 2000 ELO puzzles. And just do them or repeat until the point where you're thinking about this rhythm naturally. And you don't actually... You repeat it by nature at this point. That's the first solution. And the second one is to think about this thinking process from the beginning all the way into the end game when you're playing against real players. So that is about tunnel vision. Let's now talk about the other very important thing in these examples, which is the opening. Remember that in the first game, the first move h6 was a bad move. We have said it is a bad move, and you can see it gives white an advantage from point 1 to point 6. Basically now white has an advantage, and it is something that you as a beginner, you have to fix this if you want any time to improve to any level. It has to be fixed first. Now remember, we have said that this move h6 is a problem because you want to take over the center. When he does a move like h6, you as white, or black if white does it, you immediately need to think, how can I strike in the center? And in here, the response that I've pointed out for is very simple. You immediately strike with d4, because again, you want to have control over this part. This part gives you a major advantage in the middle game and the end game if you have more control over it. Beginners just do not know this by nature because they're just starting out. And then if they of course take you with a pawn, it's absolutely fine. You're gonna retake back with the knight. Look at this now, just at how much control you have over their own part of the board and the center as well. This gives you a much simpler time at the middle game and the end game to move pieces, and in the opening and the middle game it makes it much simpler and more common for your opponent to make blunders and tunnel visions like the ones that we've seen before. So it helps you in all levels to take over the center, like this in the beginning. It's an opening principle. Take over the center. If you want kind of like a system or a way to remember this much easier, this is what you do. First of all, you can learn a specific opening in the game, one for white and another one for black. And the other way that you can really make this simpler in your mind is to think by move 10. Basically, in the first 10 moves that I have, I won, and in here, for example, it's just the first 5 moves, so it's very possible. Developed all of the pieces, moved white. So by the first 10 moves, and this is how you think, I moved out all of my pieces out somewhere over the board. That is the first task. The second one is I moved 2 of my pawns out, helped induce them to take over the center. Okay, so 3 tasks in the opening that you have. It is very simple this way to play properly. And then again, when they make a move that you by default have learned that counters your opening principles, your opening ideas, which are to take over the center, develop the pieces like this, you immediately think, this is a bad move. I know why it is a bad move, because it doesn't take over the center, it doesn't castle either. So I want to punish this by even being more aggressive in the center, and I immediately want to move a pawn here, like this. I want to attack. That is the second thing. Let's now talk about tactics. Tactics are probably, I'd say, one of the more common topics that you'll have in chess. Okay, it goes from the beginning to the end game. This particular video, I won't show you a specific tactic because there's no need for me to just show you. Tactics are just pattern recognition. There are 5 tactics that you need to be aware of. First of all, it's the back rank checkmate. This is a specific mate pattern. The second one is the fork. Third one is called discovered attack. The fourth is the skewer. And the last one is called the pin. These are 5 tactical motifs that you need to know. The first one is more of a checkmate pattern, but it's still very important. How do you practice all of them? Go to chess.com right now to custom pauses. And in here you will have the option to specify for each of them, and again practice them one by the other. It is very important. If you have any questions, comment them below. I'll answer all of you. And if you want to learn more about chess, subscribe to this channel. I'll show you more about the game itself. So thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.